Hey everyone, welcome to another Power Monkey podcast. On today's episode, Chad and I interview Kaci Clark. Now, many of you probably don't know who Kaci is, but I guarantee you this is going to be an episode you're going to want to listen to. Kaci is one of the most impressive people I have ever met. She is a West Point grad, having competed for their pole vaulting team during her time at Army. She is now part of the Army's CrossFit Team, and after her graduation, she actually moved on to become a helicopter pilot, but not any helicopter pilot. She became a Blackhawk Special Forces helicopter pilot. She's an incredible person. She's one of the most humble people you ever meet. Her story is incredible. Her family legacy is amazing. I look at her as her modern day superhero. I call her Captain Marvel in this episode, and I think it's absolutely true. She is one of a kind. I think she's fantastic, and hopefully we have her back on for another episode. But enjoy this episode with Kaci Clark.
All right, Kaci. Hey, it's so good to see you again. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm still a little in awe, but I'm super excited.
Well, I was going to say you agreed to come on in spite of all the intimidation. And the only reason I really bring that up is because it's one of the few things I actually beat Dave on. You told me at the last Power Monkey camp that you're intimidated by both of us, but I'm actually a little more intimidating. So I'm it kind of sucks on one hand, but I'm a little bit proud at the same time.
Wait, you're intimidated by me and Chad?
Yeah, maybe you didn't hear the story, Dave.
No, I didn't. I mean,
I think I was talking with Dave Newman when we were talking about people that intimidate us, and I was like, oh yeah, Chad is probably at the top of the list. And then I said you, Dave, and then Osh.
I think everyone's intimidated by Osh. Yeah, that's for sure. She's definitely top of the list for me.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I would not want to see her mad. Have you ever seen her mad, Dave?
More just a little upset, not full on mad. I think she might turn green if she turns full mad. So we don't want any She-Hulk happening.
She's one that I would not want to fight, and I got to be honest, Kaci, I wouldn't want to fight you either. I feel like with your background and what you've done for a career, you're intimidating as well. Have you found that with other people being intimidated by you also?
I've heard it. I think people have said that I come off pretty intimidating, but in my head, I don't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's probably the same as you, as what
Yep.
you're saying too. You're just like, wait, what? That
Yep.
catches me off guard.
For sure. Well, even though I enjoy beating Dave, hopefully through this podcast, I can, I'll get that to die down even a little bit more. But certainly, hopefully by next camp, you won't be intimidated at all, and we'll be all set and good to go. But two of the coolest jobs really in the world that I can think of, and not that I would necessarily want to do either one of them, to be honest with you, but a helicopter pilot and a CrossFitter, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how your job went from being a helicopter pilot now into being a CrossFitter in the Army?
It's kind of a long story. So
tell it. I want to hear it.
Yeah, you got time?
Absolutely.
A little bit.
So I've been in the Army for going on 10 years. We'll be in May, this coming May. I graduated from West Point, the United States Military Academy, in 2011 and commissioned right into the Army and got my choice of jobs, which was to go and be a helicopter pilot, which
I like how you just casually throw that out, by the way. West Point, no big deal, right? Again, intimidation.
Is there a lot of rivalry between the military academies? Do you think that West Point is head and shoulders above Navy and Air Force? It's not even close?
I mean, yes. We have huge rivalries. I mean, we kind of, honestly, the biggest is between Army and Navy.
Sure.
And in sports, it's just unreal. I think they somewhat indoctrinize us when we start the academy. They or brainwashers are you hate Navy, you hate Navy. And Air Force, we kind of, I think, Army will always choose Navy over Air Force, and Navy will always choose Army over Air Force.
Right,
No,
right. Well, you guys are so close too on the East Coast, so there's a
yes,
location rivalry as well.
yes, for sure. And I mean, we go around like at school when we're greeting each other. I mean, the main slogan's "Beat Navy." Like that's always like.
That's what you say hello to each other?
Yep, basically, yep. But yeah, so I went to flight school, which is about a year and some change of training down in Fort Rucker, Alabama, and then came out as a Blackhawk helicopter pilot and got stationed up at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and trained and deployed out of there with my for my first deployment in like 2014, and then came back from there and decided that I wanted to go into special operations for flying. They had just opened it up to allowing females in as pilots. And so I essentially tried out for that and successfully made it, and trained and deployed with them several times over 3 to 4 years. And then as I was getting ready to kind of transition out of there to go back to the regular Army to take a command, which is what a lot of the officers have to do to get promoted. And so we'll leave special operations for a little bit, go command, and then come back. That's when the Army put out like, hey, we're going to start this team of fit people that it wasn't specific to CrossFit. They just kind of put out like this PSA of like, hey, are you competitive in functional fitness or like powerlifting? And so it's kind of like some of those events that aren't necessarily in the Olympics, because the Army has like what we call all Army, where they all go and they're in Colorado, kind of where the Olympic Training Center is, and they have athletes there that are potential Olympic hopefuls. But this was also a PSA for more so recruiting for the Army. And so I put an application and was like, I'm just going to shoot my shot. And went and tried out. And then they selected 12 of us at the end of that tryout to be on the team. So it was 5 females and 7 males out of the Army that were going to be training essentially full time for CrossFit. And then we also have 3 strong men / one's a strong female or strong woman, I think is what they call them. So we all PCS, which means moving to Fort Knox, Kentucky, which is about an hour from Louisville, Kentucky. So it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but that's where they keep all the gold up at Fort Knox.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's where we train full time. And we've been doing that for about a year. Some of us got here at different times. I got here last October. But yeah, it's been a huge whirlwind, especially for going from flying and deploying kind of on the operational side to then all of a sudden, no, you're going to compete full time for the Army. So I've had 2 dream jobs.
Yeah. So were you planning to stop flying anyway, or is it just happened because you wanted to work out more?
I definitely wasn't planning on taking a break from flying. And with the team, we're so new and it's still, trying to figure out the kinks and whatnot. So myself and another guy on the team, he's also a pilot. And so there's different kind of levels as far as like retaining hours and training when you are a pilot, and depending on your job. So there are some jobs that aren't even like ours, but that you're not flying full time. So they like have different levels, if that makes sense. So we follow under like the minimal level where we just really just go into simulators and train just to kind of still keep our proficiency. But then like if you're on more so what we would say like the front lines, then you have to get, at least like 100 hours a year, like flying full time under different conditions. So yeah, I've definitely taken a step back, but I think I also personally probably needed that. I mean, you can definitely get burned out, and that's not necessarily where you want to be when you are doing something that's so crucial and somewhat dangerous. So I was definitely thankful, I think, subconsciously and now consciously, that I took a break. But I do miss it. I do miss flying.
I was just about to say, it's been about a year. You know, you're surely missing it by now.
Yeah, and I'm already looking at options, because the team for me is not going to be that much longer, actually. So I'm looking at going back, getting into it, and hopefully like riding a bike, right?
Yeah. Well, not very many people know that, actually. You'd be the one to ask for sure. But yeah, that's interesting. How much longer do you think you'll stay in?
I'm looking at a couple different options right now, because my commitment is actually up next month. And so I'll basically be what, you'd maybe say a free agent. And so I'm looking at either going into the reserves or the National Guard, because I definitely still want to continue to serve and like stay connected. But I also think I want to explore other options that are just a little more in tune with what I'm passionate about, like fitness and sports psychology and things like that. So I definitely want the opportunity to go and get my master's or possibly PhD. So I'm probably looking to get out within the next year and go into the reserves, which for the reserves and the Guard, it's more so like the Army's almost like a part-time job, if you say. So like you're a civilian, but you train monthly still.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Chad.
I was just going to ask, because you say that you're not going to be a part of the team anymore, that you're getting out of the Army pretty soon. Do you have still specific goals with fitness, with CrossFit, that you want to achieve?
Yeah. I that's what I love about CrossFit, is that it doesn't just end at like an age, and that I foresee myself doing it as long as I possibly can until I can physically get up, if that makes sense. So I don't foresee necessarily that I'm going to stop, but I also don't know if I'll be as competitive. I would like to. And I'm looking at different options, whether it's, training with a gym where I continue where I live. So I'm just like looking to move to Atlanta and possibly go to Training Think Tank or something like that. So I definitely still have the energy and the passion and the excitement to want to compete. And we're still, like I said, the team's just so new. We're still evolving. So we're also possibly looking at opening it to to the reserves and the Guard. So, which I would be so pumped to be able to still be a part of, because I think this is such a good asset to the Army, and to be able to showcase like soldiers to the civilian world, and seeing that, hey, I mean, we're not all just, G.I. Joe and G.I. Jane. we're regular people, and we've got just so many different unique jobs that the Army can provide.
Well, I think you're being a little modest in terms of your abilities, and you're kind of a superhero. You're a badass in a lot of things that you're doing, and you mentioned 2 jobs, but you're incredible at both of them. And I want to touch a little bit more on the helicopter stuff, because I think it's fascinating, it's awesome, and I want you to kind of elaborate a little bit as much as you can. So my first question is, you talked about being Blackhawk helicopter pilot, Special Forces, correct? So were you one of the first? You said it was opened up to females fairly kind of close to when you were anticipating doing it, correct? And were you kind of the first crop of women that actually started doing Special Forces helicopter pilot training?
Yeah, I mean, as when people ask me that, I say, well, I mean, like they didn't give us a certificate. So,
Mm.
I mean, I'm not sure, what number or anything like that. And I haven't heard of any other Black female Special Forces helicopter pilots, but yeah.
So, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, just congratulations on the fact that you were able to get to that point and being able to, do something that essentially hasn't never been done before. But you fall in kind of a line of family members that have pursued similar goals, right? Can you talk a little bit about your parents and your mom specifically with what she's done?
Yeah. So both my parents were helicopter pilots as well in the Army, and that was back in actually when my dad he became a helicopter pilot. Aviation wasn't even an official branch of the Army. It was still like the flying corps or something like that. So he was actually an infantry officer who went over to fly. So that kind of shows a little bit of his age. But so he flew Lakotas, or I'm sorry, not Lakotas, Kiowas, which they have retired and put in the Army Museum. So they don't fly anymore. And then my mom was a couple years younger than him, but still she was one of the first Black female helicopter pilots in the entire Army. And yeah, she flew for several years as well. Either of my parents retired and they got out probably around the same time that I'll be getting out. But she flew Hueys, which is kind of like the earlier version of a Blackhawk. Air Force still has them and whatnot, but my dad actually still flies. And I call him the old man flying group, but it's this it's a group of guys who are like retired, flew in Vietnam. I mean, they have extensive backgrounds that are just amazing, and they do like air shows around the Southeast. A lot of them are based out of Georgia, where I'm from, and they fly and they give tours to people that come to the air shows, and they fly like Hueys and all those kind of retired aircraft. So it's pretty cool to be able to share that with my parents. And I never thought I would. Going to West Point, I didn't want to fly originally.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this because you don't want to follow, you want to be a rebel and do something different? And then you're like, wait a second. This is
I
where I was
know.
meant to be?
I mean, I guess maybe that's what it was too, because growing up as a gymnast, I actually was dead set on, going to college and doing gymnastics, and had gotten recruited by like LSU and the Air Force Academy I was looking at as well, because they have a women's gymnastics team. And actually went out for my recruiting trip to the Air Force Academy and loved the team. Oh my gosh, I still to this day will be one of those things that I'm like, oh, I wish I had. But I wasn't as keen on the school, to be honest. And another big driving factor, I was like, I don't want to fly. Totally ate crow.
Well, it seems like things kind of worked out in the end.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Following in your parents' footsteps in terms of helicopter pilot. It's an incredible legacy. I mean, you guys and your sister is also pretty high up within the Army as well.
Yeah,
it's
she's
definitely
not a
become a family
pilot,
affair.
So.
Right?
Shameful.
She's the outcast, right? Yeah.
But she's gonna outdo us all, and I 100% believe she's gonna be a general, because I mean, she was promoted early, ahead of her peers, and I mean, she is just doing amazing in the Army. I call her for everything. I'm like, how do I do this? She's like, Kaci.
What a legacy! I mean, you guys are incredible. Can you talk a little bit about you talked a little bit about the difference in helicopters, and this is just me being kind of a fanboy of flying and things like that. You talked about the Hueys. You talked about the different types of helicopters. Which ones you specifically flying Blackhawk? What are those specifically used for, and what are some of the others that are kind of used today? And did you have any inclination to fly any others, and why you chose Blackhawk?
Yeah, so there's Apaches, there's Blackhawks, and there's Chinooks. Those are really the three main ones. And then there's also Lakotas, who are they're a little bit bigger than the Kiowas. So the Kiowas kind of what we say, like look like a bug or like mosquitoes. They're so small. Every helicopter in the Army is a 2-manned aircraft. So you always have a co-pilot with you in each aircraft. But Blackhawks and Chinooks are what we call like lift aircraft. So we're carrying people. So we're carrying guys in the back and essentially dropping them on the X, which, you know, like X marks the spot. That's the spot where there'll be like infantry guys getting out to go do special missions and whatnot. So Blackhawks usually hold about like 10 to 12 guys in the back, whereas Chinooks, and they have 2 rotors, so like spinny things at the top. 2 of them, they look like a big bus. And kind of the running joke with them is you can always fit one more. So I'm not even entirely sure how many people they can fit in the back of it, but they're pretty cool aircraft. I mean, they're the biggest and they actually can go the fastest. Wow. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit of a fangirl of Chinooks. I mean, I love Blackhawks. I never thought I would fly anything else, but Chinooks definitely have a special place in my heart too. And then the Apaches, they don't carry any other guys, and those are like your gunships. So they've got a whole bunch of weapons on them. And I'm not a specialist in any form on any of the aircraft. So there's just 2 pilots in there, and they sit tandem. So they sit one in front of the other, whereas in a Chinook and a Blackhawk, you're sitting next to your co-pilot. Yeah. So, and then Lakotas, they're more so for like medevac. So like casualty evacuation.
I think I had an opportunity to check those out. Somebody who was also a helicopter pilot within the military came to one of our clinics that we did in Hawaii last year. And out in Oahu, he took us to the base. He took us to check out the they use them for medical purposes, but took us out, showed us all the different helicopters, and then I actually got to sit in one of the simulations, and I got to try to fly, like we were talking about, one of the military helicopters in the simulation. I maybe crashed it every 5 seconds. Every 5 seconds, and I'm dead, and I'm dead, and I'm dead. It was awesome, very, very cool, but I have absolutely no idea how you guys do it. It's fascinating to me. I definitely want to get up there at some point.
That's definitely why school is like a little over a year. Because we start out in like, you know, something equivalent to like a news helicopter. So like pretty small. And like you're learning how to hover, and like your instructor's next to you, and he's like, I mean, literally like a finger on the stick in front of you that like basically just you're able to control with your wrist, and he's just got his finger on there, and you're just like still. It's like, I mean, just so still in the air. And he's like, okay, you ready? I'm going to give you all of the controls. And you've got 3 different controls. So you're controlling the pedals, and then your left hand has a control, and your right hand has a control. And he's like, okay, you ready? Got to keep it here. This is where we're going to keep the helicopter right here. You're like, okay, I got it. And then he passes over, and you're like, the first 3 seconds, you're like, I got it. And then all of a sudden you just start swinging.
Don't got it.
And you're like, I don't got it. And then he just grabs them right back. And it's like, zoop, like just like right back to being still. You're like, okay.
Right. Being a professional at anything takes some time, right? Yeah. 10,000 hours.
And a soft touch, definitely a soft touch as well. Seems to be good with
less
everything.
Is more. Less
now,
is
do you get to pick which helicopter you want to fly, or is that kind of decided as you go through school?
So it's merit based. So you're taking various different courses with tests and flight tests as well. And so, all of that goes into like your average. And then on the day of like selection, it's not the same for every class as far as like the number of specific aircraft types that are available. So like for my class, we weren't even given the option to be able to select Chinooks. So we had like Kiowa slots, Apache slots, and Blackhawk slots. So then they call off like the top person. They're like, come up, pick a aircraft.
Wow.
And it's
Wow.
simply like just scratching it off. And if you're at the bottom, you're just watching your dreams just.
Yeah.
Did you want to fly the Blackhawk? Was that your first choice?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And for me, we had two different models for options of the Blackhawk. We had like kind of like the older model, which kind of like requires you to fly more. And then there was like the newer model that has like all the computer systems, and it kind of has a little more like autopilot type into it. And I was like, I want to be a pilot. So I wanted to fly the older model first, even though now like it's pretty much obsolete. But I mean, I felt like it definitely helped me hone in my technique.
So taking the conversation from technique on one side to technique on another world, you mentioned it a little bit, and I don't want to gloss over because obviously my background in gymnastics, you were a gymnast.
Boo.
Yes.
And you went to college and you were an athlete in college, not for gymnastics though. Can you talk about transferring from, growing up, being a gymnast, getting recruited to gymnastics, not pursuing that, and then how did you become an athlete? I'll let you explain the story, but you ended up becoming a pole vaulter.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Man, I started gymnastics when I was 3. I mean, that was my whole world, competing, and was a level 10 gymnast, made it to nationals, and really thought I was going to go into college. I mean, like I said, probably vault and floor were my specialties, and that's where I looked at going to LSU and the Air Force Academy. And but my mom
and really quickly before you continue, you mentioned Air Force having a women's collegiate program, but the other military academies do not have women's gymnastics.
No.
They have men's gymnastics.
They have men's,
but they don't have women's gymnastics, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Right?
Why is that?
Well, for one, all the academies are at least 85% male. So with was it Title IX and NCAA, they always have to have the ratio of male sports to female sports. And Air Force has the biggest percentage of females, so I think that's why they're able to keep their gymnastics team. And apparently Army had one way back in the 80s, but it didn't last long. But they have an amazing men's gymnastics team.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
So does Navy. So it just always baffles me though, because I feel like female gymnasts are what you would really want, in an academy or in any service. Because we have that upper body strength that's kind of usually a struggle for most females. But yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting just from my perspective. We've had some other people on here recently talking about NCAA men's gymnastics being that sports being dropped so rapidly. And when you mentioned that to me at our last Power Monkey camp that, Air Force has a program for women, but Army and Navy do not. And with regards to Title IX basically just allows for equal representation, right, between men and women, but it doesn't really have to do with the number of sports or scholarships. Some of it has to do with the actual population of the university. So as you're saying, 85% of the population is male at the, at Army and Navy. So that kind of is where the allocation of the spots come into play with regards to Title IX. So, if you have that many male versus female, then it's less likely that you're gonna have the opportunity to have a female sport, which is shocking to me because most of the time the men's sports are the ones that are sacrificed. But in this case, women's gymnastics is the one that didn't get the opportunity. So it was surprising to me to hear that. Yeah.
So was very competitive in gymnastics growing up, but my mom was also very adamant on making sure that, I did other things that I wanted to do, like doing school plays and being involved in other sports. And I went to a small Catholic school, so I was kind of able to do some of those other sports. So I ran track and field. And my mom's the real MVP because she would pick me up immediately from practice and then drive me 45 minutes to gymnastics, and I'd be like taking a nap in the back of the car, and then I'd train for 4 hours, you know, until almost 10 o'clock at night, and then go home and do it all over again. But yeah, so I ran track and field and made it to state, and long jump and triple jump were kind of my two events that I really enjoyed. And so West Point was also looking at me for those two events as well. And so ended up going to West Point, and so I was on the track team as well, and quickly learned that I was not going to be a successful college triple jumper, because if you've seen college or professional triple jumpers, they're about a full foot taller than me. I'm only 5'1", and I'm like showing up to these events. I'm like, oh, this girl is jumping way further than me, like a meter further than me, which is like over 3 feet. And so I was like, Coach, I don't really want to triple jump anymore. I like long jumping. I'm still able to hang in there somewhat. And he was like, well, we also don't really have any pole vaulters this year. I think the last one had just graduated or whatnot. And he was like, do you want to try pole vaulting? Your gymnastics background? And I was just like, the thing with the stick. I don't know about that. Because also at school, in high school, we didn't really have pole vault either, because it's a dangerous sport. And so not a lot of schools have it. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. And I feel like my first year, I just kind of floundered around, not really knowing what to do. And like, we didn't have really a pole vault specific coach either. And then my yuck year, which is my sophomore year at West Point, we call them yucks. We got a pole vault coach. And I mean, it is amazing how, you know, having a good coach can really, you know, make you go far.
Who'd have thought? Who would
have thought? So, I mean, I went from like barely making it over 9 feet to, you know, jumping like over 11 feet within that first year. And then like my next 2 years, I was just really, I mean, only tapping on the door of that very technical event. But it ended up being my best event, and like making it to to ECACs, which is like our regionals and like getting second there. And like the schools that we compete against are like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, Penn. And so yeah, jumping around like 13 feet when I finished in my senior year, and like breaking our Army's school record for indoor and outdoor. So it was like really awesome, but I also feel like I was just like hitting, you know, that potential when I had to kind of finish. Because I mean, you get out and you're just like, oh, where am I going to find a pole vaulting gym? Like, it's not really something you can continue unless there's a specific gym for it. But that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, take those records and keep them with you. Keep them close by.
Oh, for sure. No, I think there's been a girl that broke it recently, or at least broke one of them. So
yeah, it's gonna happen.
Awesome.
They're made to be broken records, but
yeah.
Kaci, I mean, if people haven't recognized it by now, but you really are like a real life superhero. Like,
she's like Forrest Gump to me. She's done so many things. Like, she's so good at. I mean, you know, it's like just reminds me of Forrest Gump in a good way. In a good way.
Forrest
it's amazing.
Gump is a good thing.
Oh yeah, but it's amazing to hear all that you've done and you continue to do. Now, finishing up your pole vaulting career, and you know, you mentioned a little bit transitioning into the CrossFit world. Were you introduced to CrossFit through the Army program, or did you know about it prior to becoming part of that team?
So I started CrossFit kind of on my own. So like, I mean, coming out of West Point, and you know, kind of always, I mean, even as a gymnast, just always like having someone telling me what to do, like, and staying in shape. And then starting flight school, I was like, oh, now I have to be responsible for my own fitness, and like trying to go into a Globo gym, and like, that's really intimidating. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I kind of heard about CrossFit a little bit, like while I was at West Point, but it just wasn't something I was focused on or given any time of day to, which looking back, wish I had. But there was a gym near the flight school base, and my two roommates, my two best friends, they were like, we tried this thing called CrossFit today. And I was like, okay, whatever. And they're like, come with us. So I went with them, and I think it had like, honestly can't remember what the workout was, but it had like handstand walks or something in it, something that I just love. And I was like, oh, I love this. I get to basically do handstands and like hang on a bar, like, yes. So they of course have stopped CrossFit, and I'm still just knee deep in it.
Getting started.
Yeah, but I would say it probably I really got into it on my first deployment. That was a huge outlet for me for those 9 months in Afghanistan. And I also, because there's an affiliate gym on Bagram, and kind of, I had just gotten my level 1 before I deployed, and it kind of started coaching at the gym at Fort Campbell that I went to. And then I deployed and was going to one of the classes, and then the coach of that class ended up having to like go back home or something like that. And they're like, we're going to have to get rid of this class if we don't have anybody to coach it. And I was like, well, I guess I have my level 1. And they're like, you want to coach it? And I was like, no. But that ended up being the best experience that I've had, you know, really honestly, to CrossFit. And I like, because like the group that we had was just so amazing. And I mean, it was a mix of Air Force people, Navy people, contractors. I mean, all of us that are essentially from around the world, you know, all there together, and like in a very austere environment, and like being able to like, that's our outlet. So that was like really, really awesome. Got a little taste of like programming and whatnot, because I had to come up with my own workouts for the class and everything. But that was also my first open that I did while I was deployed. What year was that? 2014.
Okay.
So technically made regionals while I was there.
Wow.
But obviously couldn't compete because being deployed. And but yeah, that was just so great. And it definitely just made me really realize why I was doing CrossFit. And it wasn't necessarily to like be in shape, but it was for the community.
Mm-hmm. And how many classes were you teaching a day, and how many people would normally show up to these classes?
I was only teaching one, and it was at 9:30 at night over in Bagram. So it was, I mean, I cannot say this under oath, but you know, flying various hours in the day, and then coming back, and I'd like take a quick nap and then get up again and go coach and work out myself. But I mean, it honestly, I knew I needed it more than I needed sleep, if that makes sense. Because it was just such an outlet for me. And it was honestly the coaching. I really love coaching. And it's been pretty cool too that every duty station that I've lived at, I've gotten to coach at a box.
Awesome. It's funny to me that you said you were more intimidated by the Globo gym than the CrossFit gym. That's usually the opposite for people.
Really?
Maybe. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of
you can hide. Yeah, you can hide in the Globo gym.
The Globo gym slogan is that we're less intimidating. Like you know, they kick people out for having big water jugs, or, you know, wearing tank tops, or, you know, stuff like that. They don't want anyone to be intimidated. So, but you're absolutely in the right place. You're absolutely in the right place. I wanted to talk a little bit more, you know, since we're on the CrossFit topic, of course, or the fitness topic. When you mentioned the trial that you guys had for the team, can you tell us a little bit about that and what that entailed?
For our team, at first it was just like an online application. Kind of had to give like your fitness resume of kind of like what your background was, what your open scores were in the past. I mean, really the packet was pretty thick. And then like, you also have to show that, I mean, you're a good soldier, good officer. So, you know, you don't have any like bad marks on your, like you don't show up or something like that. And then you kind of got like, some people got a call back. So I think like out of like 300 to 400 applications, they invited about 30 people for the in-person tryout.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just over a weekend, and we had like an interview process because they wanted to know who we were as people. That's very important too. And then it was like a 2-day competition of like 3 different workouts a day, just trying to see how we move and obviously how we perform under pressure and whatnot.
What were some of those tests? I'm very curious about that.
Well, we did a wonderful classic Murph with the vest.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably my least favorite because it included running.
Had you done that before?
I had done Murph before, but it was just, I'd always done it for fun. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
No, that doesn't make sense, but okay. Well, that being said, you say you did that for fun. Let's just go off topic here briefly. Have you done Atalanta?
No, I have not. And I was
plan
actually,
to.
Oh, I mean, I was actually just talking with Haley because she's up here, and she's like, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with my arms.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, I would think I would like the 300 push-up or 300 pull-ups, but yeah, I can't say that for sure. That's a lot.
A lot of reps.
A lot of reps. Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing that one if I don't have to.
Yeah, unless you're forced to in competition.
Yeah, we'll put it on the agenda for next Power Monkey Camp and make sure that you're the rabbit for it.
Do we have a 2-day like
2-day time camp? Yeah.
Well, if I'm doing it, it's going to be about a week. I'm going to spread all those reps out over the course of a week at least.
Yeah.
Go sleep overnight and then start the reps back up. And just keep,
So when it comes to strengths and weaknesses within the CrossFit world, I'm guessing gymnastics movements, your wheelhouse. You mentioned just there with Murph, running, not something any gymnast is ever used to, or any weightlifter, that's for sure. But how's your weightlifting? Is it something that you feel comfortable with? I'm sure positionally you have no issues with it, but how was the introduction to weightlifting for you coming into the CrossFit world?
Yeah. So, I mean, we had done it quite a bit. Well, I wouldn't say quite a bit, but in track, like in college, squatting and whatnot. But I think like my gymnastics background definitely helps me get into those positions. And honestly, not even my gymnastics background for the help of the positions, but just being able to watch someone do the movement and then be able to break it down. And I think I've put a lot of work into my weightlifting and have found a love and honestly a passion for it. And I think it's probably one of like my stronger points for my size. Like, again, I'm 5'1" and 135 pounds on a good day. I've had to put on weight. But I can snatch 180 pounds, and I feel like I have more in the tank as well. Definitely working on my clean. I would like to get stronger, but my jerk is probably stronger than any of the other girls on the team, if not like right there with our top girl, who is, I mean, she's probably almost as strong as Tia. I mean, she's amazing. I always laugh because the 3 girls, myself and 2 other girls, Ashley and Rachel, were the perfect team, we say, because Rachel has a cross-country track background. I mean, she can run easily a 5-minute mile. And
Yuck.
Yeah, I know, but barf. And then Ashley, I mean, I've seen her power clean 245. Like, it was nothing. And then me with my gymnastics background. So, I mean, if there's ever when CrossFit comes out with, you know, a 3-person female team, we are ready to go. And we just all work really well together. Like, it's that's probably been my favorite part about this past year, being on the team, coming from a background of usually being the only female in any of my jobs or on deployments and whatnot, and to then be working so closely with two other females. I haven't ever had that, and the connection that we have formed is just, I know, something that we're going to take for life, and I'm just so thankful for that.
Yeah, I just have to remind Dave that you said you had a passion for weightlifting. Did you hear that, Dave? Really warmed my heart.
Yeah, I did.
And maybe she's only saying that because she's intimidated by me.
I'm pretty sure she doesn't need to even say that the passion is there for gymnastics. It's just inherently known that
Yes.
she had to specifically say to you so that you feel a little better about yourself, that weightlifting is,
either way, it warms my heart. I
in the
appreciate
top
it.
10.
Yeah, I appreciate
When
it.
I started, I hated doing weightlifting. I did. But I wasn't, I felt
And then
like
she
I hit a
came to
wall.
Power Monkey Camp and we changed her mind.
Well, yes. No, but I mean, I literally had to, it was probably 2016, I think, was the next time that I really got to do the open seriously. And I mean, that was, usually the open wasn't very strength based, but there's always one event in the open that, you got to go heavy. And I just wasn't performing or getting up to, being able to finish the weights. And so I went back and I pretty much started from scratch and broke down, definitely in my snatch. I broke it down because I wasn't even getting the bar into my hips. And now that's my favorite lift, hands down. So
I would say so. 180 pounds is very, very impressive, even for a sport specific weightlifter. So very nice work there. Now we know that you're a stud of an athlete. I mean, just the stuff that we've talked about up to this point already, obviously we've seen you move and everything else. What are your, maybe one or two major weaknesses that you need the most work on in CrossFit? If you have any.
Oh, I definitely do. And try and break it to just one or two is, okay, I would say one's physical and one's mental. So physically, probably machines is a weakness of mine. So just like a rower, a skier, a bike, definitely I'd have to put a lot more effort into it just to get to the point of being able to get off the machine within 5 to 10 seconds of, someone that's their, better event. So
do you think that's because of your size, because you're short and light, or what is it?
I think it definitely plays a role, but I also probably could use some help on my just lung capacity, my cardio too, and being able to stay in that red zone. I think probably because of my gymnastics background, I like to back myself off of that. I'm oh, I'm getting to the point where my form is starting to break down, so I stop myself. So that's definitely something I've been really trying to work on. And then also just my mental game. I've recently started working with Dawn Fletcher on just having confidence, and even just going into practice that day, or if it's a long endurance piece, just self-talk and getting that negative self-talk out of the way, or having a mantra that I need to focus on that's going to push me through.
Such an important part, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I think you talked about that a little bit at Power Monkey Camp too, and I think it's really important for the listeners to take that in and understand that even someone like you struggles with the mental part. You recognize it and you've reached out to get help for it, something that's definitely looked down upon. I can't even imagine back in the day me even considering reaching out for help on that specific area. And I wish I would have. I went through 2 or 3 years of a slump that I could have used help. So a big help with my mental game. Luckily, I found my way out of it and kind of, I guess, at least mostly figured it out. But, you're a helicopter pilot. You've been on deployments, yet you're admitting and understand that you have mental hangups, and you've reached out and asked for help. And want to take this opportunity to recommend Dawn. We had Dawn at Power Monkey Camp for the first time this last camp. And, I think to our listeners, that for anyone out there that needs help, and a lot of people do, and it's okay, and you should get help, certainly check out Dawn. And Dave, you can probably give a little bit more information on that for them.
Sure, absolutely. Dawn had a company called Mentality WOD that I think it's just now called the drivenmindtraining.com. And you can find more information in terms of how she's been helping tons of athletes for years now be able to overcome some of the mental hangups. And I think any athlete that has reached any level will tell you that the mental side is as important, if not more important, than the physical side. So it normally is kind of the last thing that athletes, especially athletes that maybe are a little bit stubborn with their training. And I was very much that kind of an athlete who thought, I could just put my head down and bowl through the mental issues that I was having. Well, that's not the case. You need to confront it. You need to figure out solutions. You need to figure out, okay, you're talking, Kaci, you mentioned self-talk and things like those, actual things that you can put into place to put you in a better position to succeed. And people like Dawn definitely give you those tools. So I would highly recommend it. It was one of the things that I wish I would have had when I was a younger athlete that I didn't find until much later in my career, that I'm always like, man, it definitely stopped me from achieving some additional higher levels of success because I found it so late in my career.
Sure. And I definitely stole at least two things from Dawn as a coach as well. So she was a great asset for us all there at Power Monkey Camp this past year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think just one thing in general, because that is an area I am looking to educate myself in more, because I see how important it is. And I would love to do what Dawn does for people, because I think it's just so great when people do have those breakthroughs. But it's not even necessarily something that you necessarily want to focus on once you realize you need it, if that makes sense. It can be a preemptive thing, or it's something just to stay in a healthy space, or at the same time, like you said, Chad, you said you got through it, but it took you 3 years, so it's there's no doubt. I mean, anybody that's competing in a sport, they're already mentally strong and have something that just really helps them push through, but it's just going to give you tools to push through a little bit faster, if that makes sense.
And what did you study in college? What was your degree in?
So my undergrad was in psychology.
It was, okay. And that's where you're saying you might want to get your master's and potentially PhD and doing specifically sports psychology?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be doing an internship with O2X, which is also a human performance company based out of Boston. And they work with, the company was started by guys that were SEALs and another high performing backgrounds. And so they do workshops. They work with police departments, fire departments, sports teams, Army, Navy, the military in general. So I'm really excited to kind of just get to see a little bit into that world. Because I graduated college several years ago and haven't really used my degree. So hoping to get back into it. But I could also walk away and be like, never mind, that's not for me.
Well, I have no doubt that whatever you decide to do with it, that you'll end up being one of the best there is at it, just because that's who you are as a person. So if sports psychology is next for you, then I would probably be the first on the list to help me out with some of my mental hangups moving forward.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Just going to add to your Forrest Gump resume there.
So I appreciate the Forrest Gump reference in terms of all things, but I think she's Captain Marvel. You are Captain Marvel. If anybody knows the Marvel world, she was a pilot. She was just a superhero in every sense. You are Captain Marvel. That's your new nickname moving forward for me. I think you are the real life Captain Marvel. So just
you guys are too nice.
You really are. You're an amazing person.
Maybe we just combine the two, right? It's a combo.
Captain Gump.
Captain Forrest.
Yeah. So, Kaci, unfortunately, we're coming towards the end of our time here. I really think you're kind of the kind of person we probably end up having back on the podcast sometime in the future, just kind of as a follow-up and see what's going on in your life moving forward. But before we get you out of here, we got a few last questions. Are you up for it?
Of course.
All right.
Not sure I am.
First one, what sport or discipline do you prefer, weightlifting or gymnastics? And I know you've been listening to the podcast, so you knew this one was coming.
I've been stressing over it.
That's what she was so nervous about. That's the only thing she was nervous about.
What?
No diplomatic answers either.
Oh, I still have a diplomatic answer. So,
of course.
As I've already alluded, gymnastics. I mean, you just.
And we're done. Podcast over.
Yeah.
But I have such an appreciation for weightlifting now. Like, I've also thought about just doing Olympic weightlifting and seeing like what is there for me, because I've looked at some of the numbers for my weight class, and I'm like,
right,
maybe take a little stab at that.
You certainly could. There's no doubt about that.
Do it. Give it a try. Give it a try.
I have to go with gymnastics.
Gymnastics. Sorry. Okay.
Another one in the gymnastics bucket. I think this is just getting embarrassing for you, Chad. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's been embarrassing, but you know what? I'll take it. That was a little more than I'd hoped for. So we're all good.
All right. Question number 2. Anyone that you think would be a good guest to have on the podcast? Anybody you would recommend?
Yeah. So I already mentioned her, Dawn Fletcher, for sure.
Well, we can definitely make that one happen. I think we just got to tell Jordan to get her on the agenda and make that one happen relatively soon.
Yeah. I mean, oh my gosh, she's so great. And just as I only got a little taste at Power Monkey. And then, ever since I've started working with her, I'm like, okay, you're just an amazing human. Maybe someone else like with like a little bit different, like more like a tactical athlete type of background. So maybe someone else too that has like a stress background or high stress background, whether it's like being a specific athlete or a military, something like that.
Yeah, I like that for sure.
Yeah. We'll do it.
All right. Well, a couple more here. Which do you prefer, reading a book, watching a movie, a documentary, or a TV series?
It kind of just depends on my mood, but I will say I have been binging Big Brother.
Okay.
It's a
really?
TV series. Yes. And I think it's because it's a TV show, but it's a social psychology TV show that it is kind of insane. They put a group of, if you don't know what it is, Dave, it's a group of people that get from all different backgrounds around the US that get put in a house, and they're like, they have to be in that house 24/7. And then they kind of each week vote one person out. And then it goes down to you want to be the last person in the house, and then you win money. But you've got to kind of you have to have a social game, so you have to get people to like you, but then you also have other little physical challenges that you have to be good at too. So it's actually been the thing that I've been watching the most. I started from season 1, episode 1, and there's been 22 seasons. So
I was going to ask, is you say you're 2 seasons in?
No, I'm on season 22.
Season 22.
No, you're not.
Okay, wow. Well, you know what? With that being said, well, first of all, it's an incredible experiment. It's unbelievable to watch it. We just got done watching this season. We sat down every night that it was on, and our eyes glued to the TV. But you've got a lot of experience watching that. You need to sign up for Big Brother. That's your next step right there.
I have thought about it, but I will. First off, there's a judgment-free zone. Second, it has been a long time that we've been in COVID or quarantine. So, yeah, no excuse.
I could see you winning that game, no doubt. No, who's going to want to vote you off? Nobody's going to want to vote Kaci off of there.
Oh, it's a dog. I actually think for a while I was like, oh man, I really want to do this show. And then I quickly realized that I'm too emotional. I couldn't be cutthroat like some of these people are, and I would be very upset trying to push someone out.
And that's why they would want you. That makes for better TV right there. They want that emotion. But you said also before the recording, just to get off of that topic, you said you're listening to a lot of podcasts here lately. Which do you
Yeah.
recommend? Besides the
Oh,
Power Monkey, of course.
yes. So I've listened to a lot of your past episodes, which, man, they've all been really good. I especially listened to the, was it Dr. Lenny? Is it Dr. Lenny?
Yeah, Lenny Wiersma. Yep.
Yeah, that was really good. But I really like Crime Junkie, which is that true crime podcast. And the same lady that does Crime Junkie, actually, I really like history. And she does this one called Very Presidential. And they're about an hour long, and she goes over a president. So she like each episode is on a specific president, but I mean, she's talking about like all the things that the president did, like not political things, like personal things. So it's actually very interesting, because we'll just say that some of the things that put us in awe of what, our current might be doing is not that shocking compared to what some of past presidents have done, but it just wasn't as publicized. So
Right. It wasn't
it's pretty
Instagram.
interesting. Yeah, way before Instagram.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of podcast? It's just a small series. It's called The Relative Unknown.
I have not.
No,
you should.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah, you will probably like that a lot, Kaci. It's about the daughter of a Hell's Angel. So they were put in what do you call that program? Like protective custody at
Witness
some point.
protection.
And witness protection. And so she tells about being a witness protection and, how all that messed her up and all these people that her dad killed and everything else. It's really, really good. Really good.
Done.
There you go. Well, we appreciate you coming on. As we said before, it was great to see you, great to talk to you again, and look forward to doing it again at some point, hopefully in the near future. And do you have any parting words for the listeners?
No, for you guys, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, this was a cool experience. I know being asked to be on a podcast is completely new to me. So definitely excited to not only do this, but be a part of the Power Monkey family. And I'm already excited for the next one in May. So come to Power Monkey. I guess that's what I got for our listeners.
Absolutely. Well, a part of the Power Monkey family, you certainly are. And after your Big Brother career, I'm sure you'll be on many more podcasts. So hold out for that for sure. And we'll be looking for you on the next season of Big Brother, no doubt. All right, guys. Well,
thanks, Chad.
Don't forget to head over to powermonkeyfitness.com for services and upcoming events. Also check out our Instagram pages for regular teaching and technical content at Power Monkey Fitness, at Dave Durante, and at Ollie Chad. And on behalf of Power Monkey Fitness, we're your host. I'm Chad Vaughn with Dave Durante. And until next time, guys, thank you all for listening.